The locomotive departs Grand Central Terminal on April 20th at 6:50 p.m., scheduled for Chicago. The locomotive pulling this consist is a New York Central J1E Hudson. This class of Hudsons hit the rails in 1927 with a maximum speed of 110 miles an hour and 41,000 pounds of tractive effort. The rolling stock behind this locomotive were, in order, one express car, one baggage car, two coaches, four Pullman sleeping cars, one dining car, another 5 Pullman sleeping cars, and lastly, one coach. Inside of those 15 heavyweight passenger cars, 250 passengers were aboard, and unknowingly, these 250 passengers were destined for something they will never forget. The Hudson made one of its first stops in Albany, arriving 14 minutes late. They then determined the Hudson is not steaming well, so they swap it for another Hudson. This Hudson, number 5315, would be one of the only Hudsons to have wrecked beyond repair. After being put further behind on schedule, the locomotive was starting to speed, as the crew was worried about being put further behind schedule. This could be a factor as to how the crash happened. Traveling at 74 miles an hour, approaching the curve, which had a 45 mile an hour speed limit, one of the surviving employees had told the engineer that they were entering the curve too fast, but rather than braking, the engineer had closed the throttle. The sudden closure of the throttle may have caused the rolling stock behind the locomotive to push the loco off the rails and tip over while traveling at 59 miles an hour. Upon tipping, the Hudson had slammed into the wall and the locomotive's boiler exploded, sending fragments flying into the air as high as a quarter of a mile. 11 rail cars were seriously damaged. The engineer and firemen were killed instantly. 31 people were killed in total, 51 injured. 82 people in total were either killed or injured out of the 250 passengers. The wreck had made headlines all over the country. Before leaving, they had tested the braking systems on the J1E Hudson, and everything was working as normal. Initially, they had thought the trackage was at fault, but that was quickly refuted as the track was built the prior summer. Police and firemen responded from the nearby towns to help rescue those who could be saved. The last person to be pulled out was pulled out a full day later, April 21st. Many en route trains had to be delayed until the wreckage could get cleaned up. Some trains had bypassed the crash site, such as the 20th Century Limited. Before this crash had happened, the New York Central had gone almost 13 years without a single wreck. The year prior, they had received the Harriman Award, an annual award presented to American railroad companies in recognition of outstanding safety achievements. This crash had marked a tragic spot in railroad history. 50 years after the accident, a memorial was erected to help remember the Gulf Curve crash of 1940.